Hey guys, Brutal here. I'm going to take the next few minutes and I'm going to break down every single thing imaginable for the first section of the Underrot dungeon. From the beginning of the zone, the first pull, to actually killing Elder Leaxa. Keep in mind, this is not a one-size-fits-all guide. Each week's affixes will alter routes, pull patterns, crowd control, and much more. So use this as a general guide and consider what changes take place from week to week to give yourselves a competitive edge when a particularly difficult collection of affixes are present. Let's get going. Most weeks, groups opt to pull the Fetid Maggot and the Chosen Blood Matron together. Stun the Fetid Maggot's rotten bile before the cast goes off to avoid a frontal cone attack. It's lethal. Please do this. When the Chosen Blood Matron charges a player and begins casting Savage Cleave, get out of the way immediately. Additionally, if it's a Sanguine week, do not position yourself on the other side of a sanguinated puddle, as the Chosen Blood Matron will heal as soon as she runs through it. Additionally, if you ever pull the Chosen Blood Matron next to other NPCs, she will buff them with Warcry, increasing their haste by 25% for a short duration. The next pack of trash that you can see is a group of Underrot ticks, and these guys are especially dangerous due to their Bloodburst ability, which does damage to the entire group when they die, so be especially careful of them during Grievous, Bolstering, and Bursting weeks. Most groups opt to avoid these due to the damage they apply, but again, planning your routes before the dungeon goes a long way. Using method dungeon tools or anything you're comfortable with can help considerably. Up next, we have a Devout Blood Priest and 3 Fanatical Headhunters to contend with. You'll normally kill the Devout Blood Priest first, as she heals herself and those around her with Dark Reconstitution, so be sure to interrupt it, stun her, fear her, or use whatever tools you have available to you, even something as simple as a Monk's Ring of Peace or a Druid's Typhoon. In addition to Dark Reconstitution, she loves casting Gift of Gahoon, which, when applied to an NPC, will prevent them from dying until they've been dispelled. So make use of a Shaman's Purge, the Blood Elf racial known as Arcane Torrent, or Priest's Mass Dispel or Dispel. Whatever you have available to you. However, as always, the easiest way to deal with this mechanic is to simply prevent it from being cast in the first place. So try to interrupt it by whatever means necessary. Lastly, she does cast Blood Bolt, which is just a direct damage spell. So feel free to absorb it, spell reflect it if you're a protection warrior, interrupt it, or whatever makes sense at the time, so long as you have a means to prevent her Dark Reconstitution and her Gift of Gahoon from going off once her or one of her companions gets below 40 to 50% health. As for the Fanatical Headhunters, they throw out Barbed Spears, which hits more or less for the same amount of damage as the Devout Blood Priest's Blood Bolt. They also have an ability called Hooked Snare, which does damage to you while also rooting you, but we'll touch more on this later. Simply heal through the damage while stunning and or disorienting them as needed, but they're normally not too dangerous so long as everyone is aware of how combat is unfolding. The next choice you have in the dungeon is determining which bridge to take. All you need to do is choose the side with the fewest Chosen Blood Matrons visible, as one side will have 2 additional Chosen Blood Matrons to contend with. It's generally a good idea to avoid them, as a pull that large could quickly get out of hand without absolute coordination. Once you determine which bridge to take, pull the patrolling pack of trash, which consists of 3 NPCs that you've already dealt with: a Chosen Blood Matron, a Devout Blood Priest, and a Fanatical Headhunter. You'll likely want to kill the Devout Blood Priest first due to her ability to heal. But if you recall a moment ago, I did reference wanting to explain in greater detail the Fanatical Headhunter's Hooked Snare ability. The last thing you want to happen to you is to be rooted to the ground by the Fanatical Headhunter's Hooked Snare ability, and then have the Chosen Blood Matron charge at you using her Savage Cleave ability. You will likely die if this occurs. If this lethal combination does unfold in front of you, be prepared to escape the route by whatever means necessary, such as using a gnome's Escape Artist racial, a paladin's Hand of Freedom, or shifting into a different form as a druid. You could also apply some form of immunity, like Blessing of Protection from a paladin. The last pack of trash sees you facing 2 fanatical headhunters, 1 devout blood priest, and a new NPC called a Befouled Spirit. The Befouled Spirit channels a spell called Dark Omen, which deals moderate damage to you and anyone around you, so spread out around the platform, be aware of each other, and don't stack. Another spell, which can be interrupted, is called Harrowing Despair. It's a direct damage ability, just interrupted. Making use of a rogue's Shroud of Concealment, invisibility potions, or other stealth abilities can be a smart call here. Not because the pack of trash is overtly difficult, but because there are easier pulls deeper in the dungeon, where you can make up the percent you need for your enemy force count. If you do decide to pull this pack, that's fine, because you can also banish the Befouled Spirit if you have a Warlock in your group, which allows you to ignore it until the other NPCs are dead. As with any ability that completely takes an NPC out of combat, if you have chosen to banish the Befouled Spirit, it will not be bolstered during bolstering weeks. But do be sure to not kill anything directly under it during Sanguine weeks, as you don't want to have it continuously healing until the sanguinated puddle has dissipated. At long last, you're ready to slay Elder Leaxa. This fight is very straightforward, as you'll only be contending with a few abilities. Up first is her Blood Bolt, and it's the same thing the devout blood priests were casting before you joyfully murdered them all, but as you'd expect, it hits harder. So get an interrupt rotation rolling, and if you're a protection warrior, as you did earlier, be sure to spell reflect whenever it's available to not only avoid damage, but bring her down to 0% that much faster. Secondly, when she turns and casts Creeping Rot, simply strafe or move out of the path the bubbling green ooze on the ground is directed toward, or you'll be hit for an unreasonable amount of damage. It's also worth mentioning another ability she uses throughout the fight, known as Sanguine Feast, which is separate from the weekly Sanguine affix itself. When you see her turn into a pool of blood, do not stand in it. That's it. Lastly, if your DPS is up to code, you'll face 1, maybe 2 blood mirrors of Elder Leaxa, which simply means that she spawns a clone of herself, which has the exact same toolkit, but the clone has far less health than the boss does. Usually the group turns and burns the ad down, unless the boss is close to being dead. Either way, watch out for double the Blood Bolts, double the Creeping Rot, and double the Sanguine Feasts. Interrupt whatever you can, avoid damage, and once she's bit the dust, you're ready to move on to the second portion of the dungeon. Congratulations, give yourselves a round of applause. My name is Brutal, thank you so much for watching, and as per usual, if you think something could have been explained better, let me know in the comments below. Additionally, if I misspoke and happen to be incorrect about something, let me know and I will correct it. Please feel free to share this video and the rest of my Mythic Plus guides with your guild, communities, your friends, and as always, be well.